you have to do is get a list of all of the things you can see by the heading. It's fake, it's fraudulent, it's probably kickbacks, where they send the money and then it gets kicked back to the person that sent it. So the ones that are good, and there are not many of them, but the ones that are good, and there are some, will probably have that be handled by Marco Rubio in the State Department.
Welcome back, everyone, to the State of the Nation. That was U.S. President Donald Trump in various instances talking about how the USAID has violated its mandate and has been a front organization for nefarious agendas the world over, under the watchful eye of the administration it served prior. Now, the United States Agency for International Development, or USAID, was founded in 1961 as a vital component of American foreign policy designed to offer financial support to countries in need. Established during the Cold War under President John F. Kennedy, the agency's aim was to strengthen societies through assistance in health, education, and economic growth, while also working to diminish Soviet influence, that is way back in the 60s. However, throughout the years, USAID has faced various controversies, with critics claiming it has been utilized for political manipulation instead of solely humanitarian efforts. Now, the Trump administration's move to limit USAID's activities in recent months had sparked renewed discussions about the agency's function, with some asserting that it was essential to rein in its excesses. One of the most significant allegations against USAID is its perpetrated role in political interference, particularly concerning regime change and civil unrest in various countries. And according to allegations made, these nations include Sri Lanka, India, Nepal, and Pakistan as well in this part of our region. Although the agency's position itself as a humanitarian organization, numerous reports indicate that its financial assistance often served to promote American geopolitical interests rather than solely aiding those in need. Now, critics contend that USAID's operations extend beyond development efforts, functioning instead as tools for influencing foreign governments and domestic policies, and more importantly, working as a covert agency for the CIA. Now, a prominent instance of this interference is USAID's alleged involvement in the 2014 revolution in Ukraine. Individuals like Victoria Nuland, who was under the guise of helping a nation in crisis, was caught red-handed pulling strings to bring in a president that was subservient towards her and American powers at that time. Now, Robert F. Kennedy Jr., who's the current head of the Department of Health and Human Services of the United States, asserted that USAID provided funding for the uprising that resulted in the removal of Ukraine's democratically elected president. Watch.
To go through the modern history, 2014, there are riots it's called the Maidan Rebellion in Ukraine, which we're not told that we are financing those riots. The newspapers never told us, our government never told us. USAID, which is a CIA front, put $5 billion into funding those riots. Those riots lead to a coup d'etat against the first democratically elected government of the Ukraine. It was a government that refused to choose sides and to say we're going to be on the side of the West. So we wanted them out. A month before that government is overthrown, Victoria Nuland, who's the part of the centerpiece of the neocon ideology and who is now a high-level official in the State Department, has a secret call with the U.S. ambassador, which is tape recorded and is now public, which anybody can go and look up, where she is picking the new cabinet for the Ukraine, which is which is a U.S. Western cabinet. So they're picking the new government a month before the old government is overthrown.
Is that how democracy when Victoria Nuland picks her government?
Well, that's the point.
Well, a similar situation was reported in Bangladesh, where just last year, investigations by the Sunday Guardian revealed that USAID supported organizations who were conspiring against Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina's government. We all know Bangladesh, a beacon of growth in South Asia, suddenly befell to rise, which is not directly pinned on organizations like USAID. And more importantly, worked in tandem towards the collapse of that nation. Now, in Sri Lanka, these same types of violent riots back in 2022 failed to create an interim government as pushed by the current US ambassador. But in Bangladesh, they somehow managed to do just that. The report indicated that since 2019, USAID had been working with various factions to undermine Hasina's administration in Bangladesh. Now, after her ousting, the agency quickly redirected financial aid to the newly formed interim government, raising concerns that USAID was actively attempting to destabilize a sovereign nation instead of helping its citizens. And of course, we all know what happened in neighboring India, where even President Donald Trump questioned as to why USAID was sending in around $20 million for election-related matters in India. Watch.
$21 million for voter turnout in India. What do we need to spend $21 million for voter turnout in India? Wow, $21 million. I guess they were trying to get somebody else elected. Wow, we ought to tell the Indian government, because when we hear that Russia spent about $2 in our country, it was a big deal, right? They took some internet ads for $2,000. This is a total breakthrough. $21 million for India elections, $29 million to strengthen the political landscape in Bangladesh.
I think as a government, we are looking into it because, such organizations have an obligation to report. And my sense is, the facts will come out. Now, I read saying, so-and-so dealt with USAID or so-and-so. Look, it's not a question of did you deal with USAID or not. USAID was allowed, has been here historically. But USAID was allowed here in good faith, to do good faith activities. Now, suggestions are being made out of America that there are activities which are in bad faith. So, it surely warrants a look. And if there is something to it, I think the country should know who are the people involved in the bad faith activity.
Well, that was US President Donald Trump earlier, and following him was External Affairs Minister of India S. Jaishankar, talking about how USAID was allowed to operate in India in good faith, to do good things, and not to be part of nefarious agendas. Now, and he clearly said that it's worrying to hear this news coming out from the United States about these underhand work done on the guise of humanitarian activities. Now, as of now, many politicians in India have asked the United States to respond and to provide accurate data about what kind of interference USAID has done in the subcontinent, and some has even gone to the extent of seeking criminal procedures against this organization. So it makes sense for us Sri Lankans to ask the obvious question. Did USAID go beyond its mandate here in Sri Lanka? Were they in any way responsible for any kind of nefarious activities here in Sri Lanka, especially in the 2022 crisis? I mean, these are questions before raised by us, our own politicians need to raise, and more so ensure that our nation's sovereignty remains intact. Sri Lanka's relationship with NGOs continues to be a bittersweet one, many accusing them of this exact nature that's been uncovered by Doge in America. I mean, honestly, this is also a very good lesson from America, where they by themselves are cleaning their own cobwebs before policing the world. So, what kind of money did USAID use in Sri Lanka, and for what purposes? For that, let's go to our data board, where tonight Anuradhi Wickramasinghe is standing by with the details. Anuradhi, I know you have been diving really deep into finding as to what kind of activities USAID has been engaging in, particularly in terms of recent times. What did you manage to uncover?
Yes, Mahieash, thanks for having me. The problem is that while we did a lot of digging, the answers still remain a little unclear. Of course, Sri Lanka is no stranger to USAID. One of its administrators, Samantha Powers, has frequently been in and out of the country, coming as recently as last year when the newest president was elected as well. So safe to say we're some sort of favorite, not exactly sure of the reason why. Here are some of the projects that we found through our research that have been currently ongoing and also have previously been completed. As you can see, it fits the humanitarian NGO agenda. There's economic development, reconciliation, and also climate change adaptation, among many, to say the least. So the problem is not, the problem that we faced was not the fact that there's any sort of legality issues when it comes to how the funds are reaching the country. Clearly, the administrators of the time gave the okay and the stamp of approval to understand that these funds are going to come to Sri Lanka. The problem is how those funds, once arriving in Sri Lanka, is going to be utilized. Is it going to be utilized as the humanitarian aid that it claims to be, or is there some sort of nefarious agenda at play? So we did a bit of digging, and of course, and you might recall Elon Musk, who had Trump's administration when it comes to the Department of Government Efficiency, said that $7.9 million was used to teach journalists in Sri Lanka about pronoun etiquette and binary gendered language. Now, USAID has a slogan that says, "From the American people." Are the American taxpayers aware and approving of the fact that $7.9 million of their taxpayer money is being used in Sri Lanka to teach journalists how to say he, him, and she, her? I think not. So we did a lot more digging, and of course through Doja's website we found that there was actually a current active contract for 2025 that was worth $22 million that has now been suspended. And we saw that, of course, the country of operation, the principal performance country, is Sri Lanka. And who has this been awarded to? This has been awarded to a consulting firm called Deloitte LLP. So we were like, what exactly is Deloitte LLP doing in order to receive $22 million in order to operate in Sri Lanka? And unfortunately, through a lot of digging, we weren't able to find directly why. But as you can see on their website, Deloitte is essentially an audit assurance consulting tax service that actually basically does consultings. And also they say that they exist to make an impact that matters. Not exactly sure what they mean by that. And the problem is we couldn't clearly see what those funds were being earmarked for and what it was being used for. So we reached out and we tried to communicate with Deloitte. Specifically, I was in correspondence with the country managing partner for Deloitte Sri Lanka and also Maldives when it comes to what these funds were for. Unfortunately, through my personal email correspondence, I was only able to quote the fact that he is not in a position to comment any project scope, contractual arrangements, or financial allocations involving USAID and activities in Sri Lanka because Deloitte Sri Lanka was not in direct contract with USAID. So questions remain exactly what they plan to do because they were not giving us a proper answer as well. So the transparency issue is all up to the government to actually explain to the people why is Deloitte receiving such a big sum and what was it used for. Questions remain. Mahieash, over to you.
Very interesting data indeed, Anuradhi. I hope our politicians are watching and actually learn something out of that. Let's leave it at that. Anuradhi Wickramasinghe tonight at the data board. Thank you very much. Let's get some more insights, and for that, joining me now is Parliamentarian Namal Rajapakse from the Sri Lanka Podujana Peramuna. Thank you very much, Namal, for taking the time to join me on this episode. Now, I believe you are one of, if not the only parliamentarian to call for an inquiry into the dealings of USAID in Sri Lanka. Namal, what prompted this?
Well, thank you, Mahieash. I mean, as a party, we have been talking about external interferences in Sri Lankan administration and changing governments in Sri Lanka. Even in 2015, there was a lot of hype around the world and also in Sri Lanka that there have been some sort of external funding coming into certain political campaigns and also funding different politicians and organizations. So now the US government themselves have revealed certain information, and I think people of Sri Lanka and also the taxpayers in US has a right to have a better understanding how this funding has been spent and what are the outcomes. So I think as a member of parliament in Sri Lanka, I have a responsibility to make sure that our parliament act accordingly and gather information, gather information, and also see what steps that Sri Lankan government can take in the future to prevent these kind of incidents in the future, and also take necessary action.
Namal, are you asking for this inquiry knowing something with regard to USAID activities here in Sri Lanka? Do you think the activities would have led towards an interference in our internal affairs?
Well, when you look at the organizations that USAID has worked in the past, it is clearly those organizations and individuals are very influential in our administration structure, I would say, and especially developing national policies and also implementing that. So, if at all, if USAID or any organization had an ulterior motive, that can be influenced the administration of Sri Lanka through these individuals and organizations. So, that is not right, and I believe now the US government has revealed certain information, so we need to appoint a select committee. I don't know why Honorable Speaker is delaying it, which I questioned him in last business committee as well, which I've already put it out on my X, and I will question again in Parliament to see what steps the Sri Lankan Parliament has taken.
Interesting indeed. Well, now what is the response from the government on this matter? Are they willing to take up the issue in Parliament?
Well, when I questioned this in Parliament, the Honourable Justice Minister's stance was that they will be silent on it. And I categorically questioned him that are they going to be silent or are they going to have an inquiry or give a statement? And he clearly mentioned in Parliament that that they will be silent on this. So I believe the fact that the Speaker is delaying the Parliamentary Select Committee and also government or the Foreign Ministry not taking necessary steps or action or even issuing a statement, which is a clear indication that government just wanted to die down or to keep silent about this.
All right, let's leave it at that. Thank you very much. That was Sri Lanka Podujana Peramuna Parliamentarian Namal Rajapakse. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Mahieash.
Well, we are going to take a short commercial break. When we return, former Human Rights Commissioner Dr. Pratibha Mahanamahewa and attorney at law Udara Soisa will be here to talk more about USAID and the need to regulate the NGO space. This is the State of the Nation. Back in a minute.